Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. It's Thursday afternoon, and I'm delighted to be joined by Brian Degnan for what is something of, for me, a blessing, Brian, because you're one of these guys that came into Acsom. You were elsewhere, so you're a boy for Glasgow, obviously, and you support Celtic, but you're down in Swindon, and you're actively involved down there. We're going to be talking all about the new supporters club that you're involved with as well. Anyone in the comments section, please let us know if you're in the area, because Brian and the guys are doing some great stuff. You never know. Acsom might even go down there at some point and get involved as well. Let us know your thoughts on all things Celtic. We were getting told all week that, we were panicking, Brian, and Rangers would be sitting at the top of the league. It takes a certain mindset to do that. It takes a certain mindset to win Glasgow derbies. Brendan Rodgers has been there. He's seen it. He's done it. They were given an extra 15 minutes to do it last night. They still couldn't do it. Celtic are top of the league, Brian. It's all a state of mind, isn't it?
It's absolutely a state of mind. And I think that one of the things that... So I've been fairly scathing in my appraisal of Rodgers and the board and recruitment, as most Celtic fans have been. But what I would say is we've still got... Although I think we've been pretty average this season, they're certainly no any great shakes. I don't think individually many of their players get into your team, probably apart from the keeper. But what they severely lack is a winning mentality. And that's something that a lot of the players at Celtic now have. We've still got a large part of a treble one inside. They've been there and done it. They know the pressures. They know how to win games. We've saw that. And Brendan Rodgers, credit where it's due. And to paraphrase the man himself, he saw 5 Rangers managers, and each time he said the Rangers are coming, and each time he's still here. So I don't expect it to change. I think the title race is far tighter than it should be. I think everyone agrees on that. However, I think when it comes to it, the differences in squad, we've got a slightly better squad. We've got a very good manager, but most important is that winning mentality. And that's always what separates us, because we've saw how often they crumble, how often they bottle it. Tavernier, he's captain disappointed because he's always disappointed about something. He's always telling us the Rangers are coming, disappointed, but the real Rangers are coming. Quite frankly, I've yet to see it, and I don't think we'll see it this season either.
Listen, this is what it comes down to, and I'm not getting overexcited because we beat St Mirren 2-0. It's all about when it comes right down to the bit, Brian, and you have that, the depth in the squad. There is still enough quality in the squad. You've got a manager. I don't care for calling him elite or whatever. I know that he's a quality manager. He's a quality tactician. He's somebody who I think this season has been dealt a few dodges in terms of the amount of injuries that we've had. I think he was sold a dummy with the recruitment. He was given at some point an explanation / presentation of all the successes, and what it may not have been clear to him was the fact that we weren't doing it like that anymore, because you can give us all the successes from Angie's first season. That's not how we do recruitment at the moment. The plan might be in place, the personnel has changed, it might be changing again if rumours are to be believed, and then Rodgers has had to make do in the first half of the season with what he's got. Couple of little tweaks in January, probably not as many as we would have liked, Brian. He's got bubbling behind the scenes the Abada situation, which is a unique one in football, unique one for Celtic. So I think, all in all, he's kept his counsel pretty close, I think. And there's now a bit of bite. There's a bit of bite about Brendan, a bit of fire in his belly, Brian. And I think timing-wise, he's done that perfectly well. So we've gone through the emotions with him. He's coming in. He's trying to win back the fans. Then he starts moaning about recruitment and quality. And now we're beyond January. He's just like, bring it on. And I love that version of Brendan Rodgers.
Well, I think that's the best version of Brendan Rodgers. And as I say, the things that I've been critical of him is I don't like the excuse making. I don't like it as a quality. I don't like it as in any walk of life. Certainly, I don't like it for a Celtic manager or player. And I felt at times he was sort of doing that, and he was getting a bit snippy about things. I remember when there was boos after one of the what game it was now, and he basically said, "Oh, if it's not the team, it's me. If it's no me, it's the board." And it's a bit like, all right, Brendan, like You know, you keep saying you get it, but you're not sounding it. However, what I would say in his defence is when his back's against the wall, that's when it does do it. You know, we saw the first Rangers game this season. Everyone was going, "Oh, Scales and Welsh at the back. Don't know about this." One. Second game of the season, Clement's here. It's going to be a tough game. I don't know how we're going to get this. Won again. And to be fair, although Europe wasn't great this season, it did do a wee bit better than previous season in terms of points. Final game, I think we did at home, were decent. I think it's still a long way to go, but as you say, when you consider the fact that the recruitment was really poor, we had so many injuries to key players, and we've still got injuries to key players. I will sort of concede a bit, maybe I've been a wee bit harsh, but it does make me optimistic for the rest of the season because we do still have players to come back. And you mentioned briefly the Abada situation. I think that's incredibly hard to manage, and I think that by the sounds of it, he's an excellent man manager by all accounts. I think most players will say that, and I think he seems to have handled that well. So that's credit, because I don't know how you begin to manage a situation like that. It's really difficult for everyone involved. I can only imagine what the players going through as well. So yeah, very difficult. But I'm confident for the rest of the season. I really am. I'll probably be critical at points because the football's not been great, but that's kind of what we're here for, is to call things as we see it, right? If it's poor, we need to say it's poor. If it's great, we need to say it's great. But when it comes to it, and it's, if it's us against them, and it's who's got the stronger mentality, who's got the best manager, who can tactically pull this off, I have to say I think Rodgers will.
Well, this is going to be bringing in different views on the subject, Brian. And again, it's not with the old green tinted specs on that I put this forward. I do think there's a lot of psychology and mentality when it comes to this time of the season. And if you've got you do have the crux of a treble winning side there. You've got guys who are leaders who have been through this before, and Callum McGregor and Joe Hart, and you've got a manager who's done it time and time again, and with a wee bit to prove as well. So I like the whole dynamic of that within the Celtic camp. And there's this narrative, and Brendan's even spoken about a narrative, and it's bizarre for all to see. It's as if we're in panic mode, Brian, that we're kicking off because we're entitled and we're demanders and all this kind of nonsense. I don't think so. I think the Celtic support are sussed. We didn't get sold down the river as easy as other fan bases. And when you can see things early enough and you talk about them on platforms like this, or if you voice your concerns at the match, I don't see that as a negative. I think that's because your fan base can see what's wrong, whereas other ones like to just pull down the shirts and say, don't criticise your football club, even when it's clear that things aren't right. So I would actually take that and turn it and say it's all about the Celtic fan base being able to call it out.
Absolutely. And the thing to remember as well is it's not entitlement, it's expectation. And I've got massive expectations for the club I love. I want them to run as best as they can be. I want them to perform as best as they can be. Now, if the best we could be was third in the league, that would be a limit. And I go, right, that's a limit, but I still want us to try and improve. We win the league, right, I want us to try and improve in Europe. And I don't think it's unfair to sort of expect and demand high standards for the club you love. I think everyone should. I don't think this idea of, you can't ever criticise. It's like, well, it's not necessarily criticising, having a go. It's saying, well, this is within your capability. Why are you not doing it? So, as an example, I would never criticise Celtic for not winning the Champions League because it's almost unfathomable we could ever do it. However, I do think we could have competed better, and I do think we could have managed the situation, had a strategy in place, and made those incremental increases in quality to close that gap. So I think that's fair criticism to say, this is within your remit, you could have done this. You could have signed better players. You could have signed other coaches. You could get the best data guys in. You could make the infrastructure better. You could have a strategy. I don't think any of that's unfair. Regardless of how successful or not we're being, you can always push for better. And what's really interesting is that when a lot of the people I've seen sort of saying, well, you expect too much, or you remember the 90s, and it's like, right, cool. So in the 90s, was everyone happy we were poor? No, everyone wanted better, right? So it shouldn't be any different now. We should always want better. And the man that's still beloved by Celtic fans, myself included, Big Ange, he said all the time, as soon as things, as soon as players perform really well in training, I need to make it harder, or no one's going to improve. You can never, ever stop improving. And I think that's absolutely correct. And I think we should always be demanding that. So whether we had a 20-point lead at the top of the table and we were doing okay in Europe and we signed really good players, you'd say, right, we're doing really well, but can we do something better? Because as soon as you stop asking for that, as soon as you stop saying, can we do better, that's when you become the Celtic board. That's when you become complacent and you relax and you say, oh, that's fine, we're just winning, we're all right now. We can take the foot off the gas. And it's happened too many times. So I'll never feel bad about demanding high standards for the club I love, and I don't think anyone should.
No, because it's almost been a stick that we've been beat with this season. But I know, check you have won. It's as if give somebody else a shot. You're always winning. No, I think that being demanding and having the expectations goes hand in hand with being a successful football club. And if your fan base was quite happy to just sit there and politely cheer a defeat or a draw or a poor performance, then where's the dynamic there in terms of the expectations that the players feel from the terracing? I mean, I just think it's one of these things we shouldn't even have to explain, but we've been criticised for it, Brian, as a fan base this season, all over this narrative. And the fact that the other day there, yesterday, actually, I was reading something that we're in panic mode, and the Rangers fans are getting behind their team, and we're in panic mode. What a nonsense! I mean, they've been through a situation this season where it hasn't all been, plain sailing. They've had to change their managers because they were shambolic, and I think that they're getting a wee bit over enthused with the fact that there's a guy in charge that's actually got a group of footballers winning games they should be winning. They've never beat us. So when it comes down to a Glasgow derby, and I'm talking about Brent, I'm going to bring up a wee comment because I don't know how the headline or the tagline has been misinterpreted, but Paul Bosas, why the header? 13 games to go, we need to get positive. This is positive. This is positive, Paul. We're saying that we're in a title fight. We've ran the distance before. We've kept the faith. All of these things. And Brendan Rodgers, for me, is someone who he knows how the media works up here, Brian. He knows how the officials work. He knows what it's like to play on really, really poor pitches. And he's mentioned these things during the season. But he also knows that we've got enough. For me, I think we've got enough craftiness in our team. I think we've got enough depth within the squad to get through this season and win the double. I mean, clip it, come back to us, bookmark the tweet, do all these things people want to do, or just in case you're wrong. That's exactly what my expectation would be Celtic every single season. I want to talk about individual players with one eye on the game against Kilmarnock at the weekend, of course. I want to discuss with you, Brian, how Brendan changed things at the weekend, and he's spoken about, something that is an option now. I get the sense that he'll do it in game. I don't think he's going to do it as a rule with regards to changing the shape of the side. I think that when we're playing against teams that open up, we play better. That's why some of our best performances have been in the Champions League this season, bizarrely. I think it's a combination of us stepping up to the big occasion, but also the fact that we, in the way that we play, is better suited to teams that play like that open, expansive football. I think that we've struggled at times this season to break down, 2 banks of 5 at times. I think we have struggled with that. And sometimes the focus has been put on the wingers. So we'll be talking about that and basically how you would line up over the weekend. But before we do it, Brian, you might have seen on the socials, Brian Degnan is involved in a supporters club down in Swindon. It's new and you are heavily involved. And as I say, hopefully we can collaborate with Acsom. But just give us a wee idea. Anybody who's tuning in, people are watching Acsom all over the place. Anyone who's tuning in, give us an idea of what it is you do, where you're based, when you meet up, etc., Brian.
So it's just called the Swindon Celtic Supporters Club, Swindon CSC. Not the most original title, but it does what it says on the tin, a bit like Ronseal. So I say based in Swindon, but any Celtic supporters from the surrounding areas are welcome. Essentially, we set the supporters club up because we felt that we really wanted to sort of mirror the qualities of Celtic as well. So we formed officially around about October time. And since then, we've already had several sort of food bank collections. We're doing an Easter egg collection for some of the poorer kids. A couple of guys are actually involved in things in Sierra Leone, coaching youth kids and stuff. And it's really, really exciting time for the area and for the club. And I think we have a real sort of community vibe. You know, the venue we sort of meet at generally is called the COP. It's actually a Liverpool traditional pub, but a lot of times it's sort of just our pub for the day. So families can come in, people can bring their kids in. And what we really want to do is foster that sense of community so that, you know, our kids are leading the supporters club in that area when they're older and their kids and so on and so forth. So it's a really exciting time. I'm a committee member, founding member, which is quite exciting. But there's far cleverer, more harder working guys than me on the committee running it, and it's excellent to be part of. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, just Swindon CSC. I encourage anyone that gives a wee follow, reach out, you know, messages on there. Anyone in the area, surrounding areas, feel free to come. We've already had guys reached out to guys from Gloucester, Reading, some of the Welsh CSCs to try and get involved with things. We're going to we've got a singer coming, I think, early March. I need that date confirmed, which again is going to be a brilliant event, get people down. The money's going to go to good causes as well as sort of funding some of the events. It's also going to go to local communities, charity drives, things like that. And I just think it's really important as well as having fun and watching the games and enjoying them and you know, singing the songs and being together. There's a real community vibe, real charity vibe, and we really want to try and push forward as a CSC and really be the best version that we can be. So please, anyone in the area, anyone that fancies a trip, even if you want to just come down and call me names because you don't like what I'm saying on the podcast, feel free to come down. It'd been lovely to see everyone. And I think, as I say, Paul hinted at, we're going to try and arrange an Acsom live event down in the area as well for people who watch but can't get up to Glasgow as much. So loads to be excited about. And as I say, follow us on Twitter at Celtic CSC for any other information.
Brilliant. Absolutely superb. I love it. You're an activist. So's Jim Orr. We're full of them here at A Celtic State of Mind. Keep the comments coming in. We're really keen to get your views on all things Celtic, what we're talking about here, and anything else you want to bring up. Where's Klopp? Smell the glove. I think you're referring to JP Mason. JP Mason is doing other things over the next couple of weeks. A busy man is JP in his world of music, which he does so well. Hopefully he's tuning in. Wherever you are, JP, you are on the minds of some of our contributors and also some of the people commenting here, wondering where you are. And Paddy actually says that you look a wee bit different when your hat off. So there you go.
Better like Paddy or worse. Let's just be clear. I'm sure it's worse.
Paddy will tell you. Paddy will tell you. Keith Oakton pops up on a regular basis, if not every day, on here. Hello, all from Plymouth. And just underneath you, Keith, you've got Joseph McGonigal. I am in Plymouth. Please do a gig down here. A lot of love for Celtic down here. Well, we've certainly got two of you in the chat here in the comments. When are we coming to London? Listen, just waiting on the invite. Just waiting on the invite, mate. I showed my wee fella that picture of Messi with the Celtic jersey on yesterday, and he was blown away by it because every kid in their dug know about Messi and Ronaldo and Mbappe and Haaland, and it's all for me down to YouTube. All those YouTube influencers getting paid to talk about these guys. And I'll tell you what, a whole demographic of youngsters know all about them, Brian. Barcelona, it's a concept. It's not like you can go to the games. You know what I mean? Go to the boozer and watch the games and all this kind of stuff. Not that my 7-year-old's going to a boozer just yet. Phyllis Kirk, just remember we have won 2-2 derbies and can do so again. I think that is massive. I think it's key. The flip of that is Paul Andrew Martin, who says, come on, we were 8 points in front. A lot of chat around the lead that we did have, Brian, right? And I just think, and I'm not making excuses because I backed him. I'm absolutely not making excuses here. But I think the first half of the season, and some might say, and you'll be entitled to say it, you know, suck it up, Brendan. You've got the best players. You know, the board has spent 20 million quid. 11 new guys came in. What are you complaining about? But I think, you know, in his defence, we have had a horrendous run of injuries. I mean, right now, you think about that back four, which has done well, but Tony Ralston wouldn't be playing right back. Bernabe would not be playing left back. And Welsh wouldn't be playing centre half. The only reason Scales is playing is due to the early season injuries that we had to our new signing Mike Nawrocki and Cameron Carter-Vickers. But he deserves his place in that team. But you've got a back four, Brian, ravaged by injury. You've got Rio Hatate, who last season, for me, was our best player. So you've got the injury situation. I think you've got to mention the Asian Cup. We had 5 players away at the Asian Cup. I think of the 5, Tilio, Yang, O, Hatate, Maeda, 3 would be in the team, maybe 4 would be in the squad. Tilio probably wouldn't be. So you've had that period to deal with, and of course the Abada situation. So yeah, we have had a lead. We no longer have a lead. I'm very much about a reset. Let's reset here. We're going to have these guys coming back from injury. I think Rio Hatate is maybe 5 weeks away. Cameron Carter-Vickers is back on the grass training. Greg Taylor might even play against Kilmarnock. Alistair Johnston, I'd need to double check when he's going to be available. They're going to come back. They're going to bolster the squads. A couple of new faces, a wee bit of freshness up top. And I'm actually feeling quite positive about the second half of the season, Brian. I think we're already on a run. It's all about reset. We've got 13 league games, potentially 3 Scottish Cup games. And I think Brendan Rodgers will be a master at that and getting everybody focused on that.
Yes, so I partially agree. I think where I was critical is because I think the 8 points dropped were all avoidable. And I think that, yeah, there was loads of reasons for, injuries were a reason, Asian Cup, etc. But to be fair, you're the highest paid manager in our history. You call yourself the coaching manager, the development manager. You should have still done better with what we had, I believe. I don't think there's the injuries make up for a lot of the poor performances. And I think some of the stubbornness as well, Brendan seems to have showed at times. And I still, we've still got Kyogo, who's one of the best strikers we've ever had, no playing particularly well, or the players on the finder him, and that comes down to the manager. So while there's mitigating factors around some of the performances, I still think we should have been doing better. That said, I think that if the rumours are to be believed about the changes behind the scenes, it would feel like Brendan's sort of stamping his authority a little bit, which can only be a good thing. I think that the slight change in shape, with Kyogo dropping a little bit deeper, will probably benefit more in this system than the way he was playing at the start of the season. And I think, Matt O'Reilly's been excellent. Callum Graham's been excellent. And guys at Scales, very good. I think, Welsh coming in, he gets a lot of criticism. I don't really get it. I think he's a good player. I think he's done well. I think even Ralston's done well when he's had to go in at left back. But again, I would still have to say that I do question why Bernabei gets picked over one of the younger guys, because he's so erratic. I saw a clip, I think it was Big John shared it in the group chat, with Al Morrison talking about how he's got like the most extreme stats for a player at the one time. And I think, the boy Frame, why is there? There's no other defenders could play. Someone came in, could be a change shape a little bit. So I still think there's a lot of questions he's sort of culpable for and could be answering. However, where I do agree with you is I think the next 13 games is where he goes, right, tight belt buckle, this is what we're doing. There's no distractions now. We can't sign other players. So players, recruitment, forget that. Just can't do anything now. We deal with what we've got. We've got 13 games. This is the squad we've got. These are the players waiting to come back. Let's dig in and do it. And I think that I would love to see the performances improve, because they've been pretty stale. I think Kev Graham calls it board ball, steady Ange ball. I think that has to improve, but I still think that we will edge the title, but I think we will edge it. But we need to see massive improvement next year. So in summary, I disagree that there was excuses for the 8 points dropped. I still think we could have done better, but I do agree that we are in a good position going forward, at least for the rest of this season.
People are agreeing with you. People are agreeing with me. That's what it's all about, Brian. Let's get the debate going. But you're talking about next season, so I'm going to jump onto that subject, because we've all had those brilliant WhatsApp messages that somebody's been sitting up all night typing up, and people falling out and meeting in Switzerland and all that garbage, right? But what happens is they gain a bit of traction, and then before you know it, they drop into your your inbox forwarded many times, and you're just like, oh, here we go, chapter 7 of nonsensical drivel, right? But there has been a rumour over the last few days. Sorry if any of you guys have started any of the rumours, but they were all really, really poor efforts. The most recent one, though, Brian, obviously involves Matt Lovell, head of recruitment. You're talking about next season. I think that in order for us to progress, in order for us to see the best, perhaps even in Brendan Rodgers, and I know there's a lot of people unconvinced with Brendan Rodgers and the quality of him as a manager, I do think we need to sort out the recruitment. Now, I don't think we're going to get all our Christmases at once and the chairman and the head of recruitment are going to leave the club. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think there's an easier solution, and that is that we shake up the recruitment team. And that is, of course, the strong rumour. It's been reported on many of the alternative or fan media sites, Brian. We spoke about it briefly yesterday. And the reason I brought it up yesterday is I had heard over the weekend from a fairly decent source that this is going to happen. This has happened. It's going to happen. And we're going to get a new head of recruitment in. I see it as a massive positive. I don't think that the last 4 transfer windows have done us any favour whatsoever. And it takes a while to put that right, Brian. It takes like not a complete rebuild, but a real overhaul in the summer now, because it's not just the 11 guys that have come in this season. I think last season was really poor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I suppose the positive about it is if there is changes, then it's moving in the right direction. But you're right, it's not going to happen hugely quickly. I don't think we're going to get this massive summer transfer where all the players that are duds go and we get this swarm of new top-class players. I don't think it's going to happen that way. However, I think what's really important is that lessons are learned. So if they acknowledge that the recruitment's not be good enough, Lovell Jr. is off, we've got a new person coming in, this is the philosophy moving forward, this is the plan and we stick to it, I'll be happy enough with that. And then I can have the patience to let it pan out and see how it goes. But there has to be a plan. There has to be some sort of strategy in place, because for too long there's not been. It's been that scattergun approach. In fact, last time I was on with JP, I said it was like Ryan Christie's shooting our transfer policy. And he took a wee bit of exception, but he has only scored 4 goals in 3 years. So I think I'm probably right with that one. But the point being that there was no real plan. It was a sort of throw everything at it and see what player sticks. So we need to get that sorted. And I don't think it's just first team recruitment. I think when we have this strategy, and I believe there's changes in the academy system as well in terms of how that's coached and recruited. So that has to go from the ground up. And if we get that in place throughout it all, we can really say, look, from these guys coming in at youth level, this is how we develop them. This is the pathway we talk about to sort of add to that. We've got a really good strategy for recruitment in place. It's going to help us longer term as well and shorter term. I think that's the way we need to go. So I think that if the rumours are true and we get someone else in, I don't think it's going to be a quick fix, but I think it'll be a longer term fix. And that for me is more important actually, because we can't reset every 3 years or every 2 years and be in the same position again, because we're never going to push forward. It goes back to what I said at the start of the expectations. We've got to be pushing forward. Just those little incremental increases year on year. You know, look at Copenhagen. They're the big example everyone's thrown around, and rightly so. All of these clubs have this strategy in place where they get better. You know, Brighton, Brentford, and the English Premier League are prime examples. Put a strategy in place, stick by it, and get better and better and better. And we need to adopt that. So if, you know, the chairman, the board, Dermot Desmond, whoever has decided that Mark Lovell's time's up and we need a new, whether that be a director of football or head of recruitment or whatever the type was going to be, I think that that's a good move, because it shows that whether they'll be hesitant to admit it, they've been listening and they've been acknowledging that this isn't right and it's not good enough. And ultimately, one thing you can't say about the sort of the people in charge is that you can't accuse them of not being fond of money. And if we're taking a hit in transfers season after season and not making any money on them, I would suggest that money's more important than family loyalty a lot of these guys. So I think Mark will be out, and I think we've got someone else in that can do the job and sort of maximise the transfer policy that's made us so much money for so long.
Well, the thing is, the club can close their ears to what platforms like us say, Brian, but there's no doubt that Brendan Rodgers has been echoing a lot of the views in terms of the recruitment, the quality of the players. He's been talking about it all season. And then that will filter back, obviously, to the club, where the demands are going to be made. Whether or not they meet those demands is a completely different subject. And I think the January transfer window, Brendan said during it, we could have had guys in on the 1st of January, but it's about getting the right players. And we have signed far too many of the wrong players. Now, last week or the week before, I listed a huge amount of players that we had signed since 2010, where it was a scattergun approach, whereby, you know, it was like, right, they're all costing probably under £3.5 million. They're all up to maybe 23 years of age, right? And there'll be other metrics as well, but they're nothing to do with the ability of the player. It's age, it's transfer fee, and it's wages. This seems to be the metrics, the three metrics that they're basing everything on, so that in 2 or 3 years we can sell them for profit. Right, okay, when that works, it's brilliant. And we've had some successes. We all know the successes with Wanyama, Fraser Forster, Virgil van Dijk, Jeremy Frimpong. You know, we've had those successes in the past. I'm not even going to put Jota in there, because Jota was a different type of signing. 6 months, going into a different bracket. But we have had successes in the past, but you can't put your entire focus on that, because what happens is you end up signing loads of players that are never going to play 50 games for the club. And that was the list that I put out the other day there, and it didn't include this season. And there are going to be players that we've signed this season who won't play 50 games for Celtic. We've already seen enough. For example, the way that Telio's career's gone, he's already loaned out elsewhere. Lagerbielke would have been loaned out had it not been for Carter Vickers' injury scare. You know, Kwon's away. Will he come back? I don't know. He's doing okay at St Mirren, but St Mirren aren't Celtic. And I think that when you're looking at the amount of millions of pounds, not only does the manager get frustrated, Brian, but all that money's getting written off. I mean, it was 56 million, I counted. 56 million quid on players who did not go on to play 50 games for Celtic. And it's not because after 25 games they were signed and we made a massive profit on them. We lost money on every one of those players. So that doesn't work. And that's beyond the 4 transfer windows that we are focusing on today. If there is a change, I think what we need to do, and you don't put all your eggs in the one basket, but I think what we need to do is 2 things. First one, when we're recruiting, we need at some stage to implement and embrace data-driven in terms of recruitment, identifying players. Even if it's the long list, Brian, you identify the long list through data. You then bring it closer to the player you're going to bring to the club through scouting. And then you're going to end up with a handful of players once the manager gets into the equation near the end of the process, where he's actually talking to the players and he's checking all these things we talk about: mentality, winning mentality, you know, the will to win, the culture of the club, is he going to fit in, all that stuff, right? Because there's players at this football club who were never going to fit in, but we signed them anyway. We signed them anyway, and we expect them to have that dig and that drive, and you know, we're winning and we're getting booed. Aye, that's the way it goes, mate, because the standards are so high and we want to win every single game. But there's another thing as well, and I think we have probably turned our noses up at this in the past, right? And probably, you know, people will use David Turnbull as an example, right? I thought over the piece, when you look at Turnbull as a signing, I thought, okay, he was a success. You can't call him a flop, Brian, when you look at the games he played, the goals he scored, the trophies that he won. He came in after a horrendous knee injury at Motherwell. I think he did well. We didn't make money on him, but that doesn't mean to say he wasn't a success, right? But when you look at even the decent Scotland team that we've got now, and I say decent because we went so long without qualifying for anything, we've got a decent clutch of players there. Argue away, by the way, this is my opinion. I think your top 3 players in that team, when fit, are Andy Robertson, John McGinn, Kieran Tierney. And you say, well, where did they come from? Well, Andy Robertson came from Queen's Park. Kieran Tierney came from Celtic. John McGinn came from St Mirren, right? So maybe we should be looking a wee bit closer to home as well. I remember having a conversation about Lewis Ferguson. I can't remember what your take on him was. I thought, sign him. Sign him. He's shown enough. He's always scoring against us, but he has shown enough. And there was a trainee thought, a schoolie thought, no, he's not good enough for Celtic. And that tends to be an argument I hear quite a lot. The caveat to that, to use Aksom's favourite word, is that some of these guys only become the player that they are now, i.e. Ferguson and Doig and Hickey, because they made the move away from Scottish football. And I get that. I totally get that. Part of their progress has been the fact that they're non-Scottish football. But I do think we need to look closer to home as well. There is talent coming through, Brian, and I don't even just mean on your own doorstep, as in your own academy. I do think there's talent within Scottish football, but we turn our nose up at it far too often.
Yeah, so a bunch of things to unpack there. So in terms of the Lewis Ferguson, I have this thing in a second. I think I actually said on the show, I don't care if he's got 1690 tattooed in his head. If he scores goals for us, I'll take him. Obviously, I'd be flipping about that, but I would have took him no problem. I think he's an excellent player. And I think that, you know, people were fed up me saying it, but one of my favourite ever Celtic teams was Gordon Strachan's, when you had Paul Hartley and Barry Robson in midfield and Gary Caldwell and Steve McManus at the back. And we just got the best of those players. And we signed a lot of good players. We signed Yuri Jarosik, Thomas Gravison, and they never performed as well as the Scottish guys. So I think there's something to be said for what have we got on our doorstep, absolutely. And Majowski's the absolute standout. Like, I thought it was insane that we never signed him. I thought the fact he was scoring goals in the league, he's tall, he's fast, he's pretty strong, he's only 24 years old. He could have got him for about 5 million. It was insanity to me. We never thought to sign that guy. And there's one of the examples that, as you said, the McGinns, the Doigs of the world, moving forward. But one of the things that I think is really interesting, you picked up on, you mentioned the data. So this is what I'm always harping on about standards. So I compare this to Man City, right? We can't possibly sign the player Man City can sign because we can't afford the transfer fee, certainly can't afford the wages. And if they're that good, they want to play in a sort of an EPL or in Spain or whatever. However, there's no reason we can't get the same level of data analysis equipment or the same sort of scouting network in place because we can afford that. We could do that. So while we might say that we identified this player, but Man City are going to buy him, right? Well, where's the third or fourth on that list that matches that criteria? Where's that guy? You know, we look at this team, and if you ask most people, say that team's not tall enough. There's no get that burst of sort of dynamic pace in it, really anywhere. Maybe apart from, well, actually maybe not really anywhere for like European level. So surely your analysis is going to be right. So let's say, for example, we need a left back, centre mid, a striker. They have to be, the data metrics have to be strong, they have to be really fast, they've got to be a certain size. You know, can we bracket these down and then we say, right, we get this guy, but it doesn't meet one of those metrics? Well, that's okay because we can maybe sacrifice a bit of height if he's got a lot of pace or power, that sort of thing. And then some of the guys we've brought in don't seem to match a lot of those criteria at all. Like even like Rocky coming in, he's not the biggest and most powerful centre half. I think he's decent. I think he's a good defender, and I think he's good with the ball at his feet. But I don't think there's a huge leap between him and Stephen Welsh. I think they're about the same size. I think he's probably better than Stephen Welsh, but he's not much better. And physically, they're not much different. Lagerbeek doesn't look particularly strong for a centre back. He's got no pace. Like, that's where I find these decisions really weird. And that's where I think that, of course, you know, the elite scouting systems of the world are going to get the elite players for the elite clubs. But there's got to be a third, a fourth choice behind them that we can get. And we're just not. And it's really interesting to see how we use data because I think it's really essential. And that's why I mentioned Brighton and Brentford earlier. Because that's basically what they built their successes on and why they were able to sign guys really cheap and sell them for crazy money. And it's just, I don't understand why we can't. The things we can't change are the players and the wages and the transfer fees. I get it. But the infrastructure, the scouting, the other stuff, surely we can match these elite clubs for that. Like, I don't see any reason why we couldn't. We just don't seem to want to. And I think that it's very, and it comes back to the academy as well, actually. I know you mentioned it, but when we're getting guys into the academy, are we just saying guys we think are decent players and hoping they fit? Or is this saying, well, we need this type of winger, this type of defender, this sort of quality in a midfielder? Like, that's what I find a wee bit unusual. And again, just one last thing for a pass back. Boston Lawal, we signed, I think, from Watford's academy, highly rated.
Mm-hmm.
Started out as a midfielder. We played him centre back. Looked a bit cumbersome, but okay. Loaned him out. He's smashing it. Now, I know it's League 2, I think Fleetwood are in. League 1 or League 2. He's doing really well for them in centre mid. Big, powerful guy, strong, fast. So surely we need to be going, right, okay, can we have him back? Maybe. But then you go, why did we let him go? Why is somebody else say, surely he can be a midfielder? Surely he's not really a centre half. it's things like that which been a bit strange. It's like with Nyama as well. You mentioned him as well. When we signed him at centre back. Never a centre back, but a brilliant midfielder.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like who's making those calls, and that's where we're really flawed. And that's not to do with the sort of finances or the gap in finances or the gap in income. That's to do with how we're using what we have, and we're not using it well, in my opinion.
Well, I'll pick up on that because I agree, because I think that there are, for example, data, and I've been going on about this to the point where people might be rolling their eyes in the comments section, but there are systems that can be purchased that are obviously better than others. And if we're not utilising them, and we're not, well, absolutely not. If we're not utilising them, then you've got to ask question why. And I think what it is complacency, Brian, because we got into that habit of being able to say, oh, we're looking for a new centre half. Let's talk to the people we know. And the people we know are agents, or, there's a network there. And before you know it, you're being recommended players. And as John said yesterday, these recommendations come with a bit of favour on the side of the person recommending it, because they're recommending guys for a very specific reason. They think they might be able to do a job for the football club, but they also want to make money off the move. I mean, listen, that's what it comes down to. Whereas I think we just need to make sure we get the best player in that position within the wage structure, within our budget that we possibly can. And if you need to scour the globe for that, then that's what you do. It's not about recommendations and somebody being on the edge of a phone. And I know that some of the old school things have worked like that, Brian, right? I know that there are transfers in the past where it has worked insofar as there's connections and people are on the phone, I need a left back, recommendations, and it's worked. But you can't put all your eggs in that basket because it's not working. And it only takes 2 seasons or 4 transfer windows before you then have an issue in your squad, because there's a real lack of quality within a high percentage, a far too high percentage of your squad. Then you need to rebuild it, and that costs a lot of money again. You're tearing up contracts. We've done a lot of that in the past. That type of thing we need to get away from. But as well as like systems, I agree with you in that if Brendan Rodgers doesn't know the capabilities of somebody in the B team, why? Why doesn't he know that? Now, you can't expect him to be one of these old school managers that watches every single game of football involved in Celtic. His key focus is on the first team. And I spoke to someone who worked really closely with Martin O'Neill and said he was exactly the same. And he would go to, at the time, Willie McStay. In fact, Willie might have said this. I'm not talking out of school. And basically, he would say to Willie, just you come to me when you've got somebody ready. I'm not going to come to the games. Martin O'Neill was very much one of these guys who was happy for his coaches to coach day-to-day at Barrowfield. He might have gone himself once a week, Brian, but he was happy with the reports he was getting for his coaching staff. Wolford and Robertson worked as a great buffer between the players and the manager, and he was able to keep that bit of a distance. And from what I understand, Ange was good at that as well. And I think if you're a manager, you've got to have that bit of a distance between the players and yourself. So he would say, Martin O'Neill would say to Willie McStay, just come to me when you've got a guy that's ready. And at that point, I'll assess it. I'm not going to be coming to the games, etc. So I don't have an issue with that, but you need to make sure that the people that are looking after the B team and the academy are the right people. And I think that when you look at, again, I've used the example of all the guys that have spent 56 million on who have not made 50 appearances. I've still not done this research. Someone in the comments might be able to do it for me or tell me the answer to this. There's a lot of really, really good people involved in Celtic youth development and youth academies. Absolutely not taking a dig at any individual. I just don't think the system works when you look over the last 20 years and you ask for a list of Celtic graduates, academy graduates who have played 100 games for Celtic. It's not a big list. That is not a big list, Brian. And every so often we will come across Aidan McGeady or Kieran Tierney who were able to make money off, and it almost washes its face for a while. But we should have a conveyor belt of talent, a conveyor belt. Partizan Belgrade are doing it better than Celtic. Why? Because they're no wealthier than Celtic, but they are producing better footballers than we are for their football club. And then it gets fed into the recruitment aspect in that they're selling them and they're making money and the infrastructure is improving and their budgets are improving. So all these things are relevant, and we don't just focus on them when things aren't going so well. We always focus on them here on a Celtic State of Mind. Some people just want to talk about Kilmarnock at the weekend, and we will be doing that. But these conversations have to be had. And I think it is an interesting situation where, Robertson, McGinn, KT, these guys all came from Scotland. And, barring injury, they could play just about anywhere. They could play just about anywhere in the top leagues, Brian. And we did have we had 2 of them. We could have had all 3 of them. Robertson, we know the story there. But again, Robertson had to go and leave Celtic to go and find the mentality of a top class footballer. I would suggest the disappointment of getting a knockback early doors. So many footballers have had that, Brian. So many footballers have had that, and then they've come back a stronger person as a result of it. What do you think in the comments? Let us know. I'm really keen to bring as many of you into this as well. Feed the Bear, an absolute pleasure to see you supporting a Celtic State of Mind, and we continue to support Jamie Tierney. His link for the GoFundMe is underneath this video. It's underneath every video we do, and we're going to actually run through Mark. I'm going to get his old fella, Jamie Senior. I call him old. He's a lot younger than me, Brian. To do a wander around paradise, maybe not this Monday, but the following Monday. I hope he's available, and we'll talk about some plans for March, because loads of Celtic fans sent us some brilliant gear, Celtic signed memorabilia, etc. So I'm going to be doing a wee auction during the month of March to raise some cash for Jamie as well. We'll explain all that on the Wander. Check it out. Now, Joe Hamilton, hail from sunny Austrian Alps. That sounds decadent. That sounds amazing, Joe. I'm here in sunny Dunfermline. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, statement win needed on Saturday against a tricky opponent. Need to lay down a marker. It won't be an easy game though. I agree with that. And then Double Denim, Chris, who you will see on a Celtic State of Mind regularly. The challenge is now one of mental ability in addition to physical and tactical. We need our leaders on the pitch to drive the newer, younger players forward and get this league won. Some of these newer guys, Brian, next season will know and will have been able to embrace what Celtic's all about. Some of them won't. They'll fall by the wayside. I think in terms of the way we do recruitment, it's a numbers game, which means that some of them will not be a success. They won't be able to live up to the expectations of this football club. But I think there are a few who will, and we might only see the best of them next season. But we are where we are in terms of the personnel. So let's talk about Kilmarnock. First thing I'm going to ask you, do we continue with the shape that we started against St Mirren? Do you think Brendan Rodgers will do that against Kelly at home, which, might give you more of an attacking threat, although the stats would tell you otherwise? We gave away a lot of corner kicks. We gave away a lot of shots on goal. It was far more open for the opponent. We're at home. That's an advantage. Can you see him doing it again?
I think so. I think so. And I think probably because, with Big Ed up front, I think you want him really for that physical battle. I think he'll enjoy that against Kilmarnock. I think that's kind of how they set out. And as I mentioned earlier, I think if he plays Kyogo just behind, it gives that element of giving him a bit more freedom, a bit more influential without having to worry about being marked or booted or against a low block. So yeah, I think he probably will. And the time what's really interesting is he's played that system, we won. If he changes it and we're not doing that well, the question will be, why did you change it for? Put it back. If he changes it and we don't do well, we can always say, well, do you know what? It worked against the man, it's not here. Let's go back to what we know. So I think that's more sensible, and I would imagine that's what he'll probably do. And I think, Kilmarnock going to be they're having a really good season. McInnes just doing a really good job, in fairness to them. And they're going to play a certain way, and that's okay, that's how they play. And we have to be canny enough and clever enough to break that down. And I think that was probably part of the impetus of getting, Ida in. I know Roger said he liked him for a long time and yada, yada, yada. I'm not sure I believe that, but I certainly think a big physical player up front was what was needed to just allow the sort of flair players, somebody to sort of rotate around almost. So I'm hoping it'll work, obviously. I hope we absolutely smash them, because I think it'd be good to get a statement win, but I don't see him changing too much. And if it does, I would really question why. I think the question I would have is, if he plays Bernabei again, that's just stubbornness, I think. Because I would probably play either Ralston out of position or the boy Frame before Bernabei. For a couple of reasons. One, Bernabei's not been that good. As much as I actually thought he'd be really good this season. I think I said at the start of the season, after I saw him being a player under Rodgers, it's not happened that way. And he's not going to be, he's unlikely to be here next year. So give somebody a chance it's going to be for me. And so say the boy Frame, I don't know loads about him, but I wonder if we're looking at data, how much more or less effective he would be in that position, because Bernabei's so erratic, and as you say, the amount of like chances we give away, he gives away possession a lot, and it does get caught out. And when he's good, he's good. When he's bad, he's awful. So I think that would be a change I'd like to see. But in terms of shape, I don't see it changing. I don't think it should.
There is a suggestion that Greg Taylor might be back for this game. So that, I think, would be a phenomenal boost. I think that, again, that one of the biggest issues for me is the fact that you've got Bernabei and Palma on the same side. And that doesn't give you a great deal of confidence defensively. You've seen it, I guess, against Aberdeen, where we were horrifically exposed. And if Bernabei had somebody in front of him who was a defensive forward player like Maeda, it might have helped his case a wee bit. But as soon as Taylor comes back in, he goes right into that starting 11 for me. At the weekend, Johnson's going to be missing, so you play, I would say, Ralston on the right-hand side. And the fact that Lagerbielke's not even getting a sniff and Nawrocki's on the bench shows that whatever the recruitment team did for Brendan Rodgers when he arrived, he didn't bring in players that he feels are better than what he already had. Scales and Welsh were already at the club, and they're playing. And if they're fit, which I believe they are, they'll both play, I think, as well, centre-backs with Nawrocki on the bench. Carter Vickers a couple of weeks away. We reckon it might be Motherwell before he returns to the fray. Let's not rush him, Brian. Let's not rush him, because when you look at the fixtures, obviously Kilmarnock at home this weekend, followed by Motherwell the following Sunday, and that's away, and then Dundee midweek at home, Hearts away, and then potentially we've got Livingston in the Scottish quarters on the 9th. So I think we've got a run of games there that you're thinking we could, we could actually give Carter Vickers a wee bit more time to recover if he needs it. You don't want to rush him back. You want him in for the proper running, the games against Rangers, the ones where the margins are really, really going to count. Don't rush him back. So I think 4 at the back, Joe Hart in goals. I've been pretty supportive of Joe Hart this season, I've got to say. One of the biggest things that I've seen coming through feedback on the comments after the weekend is he shouldn't punch the ball so much. But it was pointed out to me that often he's punching it to get us basically moving. So he's punching it directly to a player when he can, rather than holding it, letting them reshape. He's punching the ball out to one of our players to get an attack going. If that's the case, fair play to you, Joe. But I think his saves have been huge. I think they've been huge for us this season, Brian. I think everything comes to that natural conclusion. This could well be his last season. I don't think we've got another goalkeeper at the club at the moment that's going to step in for him. So that's going to be a priority in the summer. But I think he's massive for us in the next 13 league games, Brian. Massive. As a leader and also as a shot stopper.
Well, funny you mentioned being a leader, because I think that's something that was lacking at the start of this season. Actually, I thought that presence that he had initially when he came to the club, and that sort of calming influence, he didn't look confident, and I think it affected his performances. Look, when you talk about Joe Hart, I think it's the same thing as Greg Taylor. You mentioned earlier it would be a real bonus to get Greg Taylor back, which is correct, but that's only because we never signed any better. So when you talk about Greg Taylor and Joe Hart, it's a similar thing, right? So yeah, Joe Hart's been good, and he'll need to be good for the next 13 games because he is a number one keeper. But we still need an upgrade. So both things can be true at the one time, right? You can see he's had a good season, but we still need better. It's like Greg Taylor, he's not a great season, but he's getting better. But we still need an upgrade anyway. And actually, I think you could probably apply that, maybe Matt O'Reilly aside, to almost everyone. Say they've done okay, they need to do better, or we could probably upgrade. So I think that's true. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he has got us out a few scrapes, Joe. It is what he should be doing, to be fair. I don't think there's been anything where I've went, wow, where's that come from? I think the saves he's made, he should be making. I know that sounds like I've been really critical. I'm not, because I'd rather have a keeper making saves, considering the keeper we had before him who couldn't make any saves. That's my daily Barcast dig. So yeah, I think he's good. I think he'll be key. And I think that he's one of those guys, we talked about mentality. I think when it comes to it, when he really needs to dig in, I think that's probably the best version of him, actually. When, the pressure's on and it's backs against the wall and you need to dig in. I actually think that's when he's pretty good. I think it's sometimes his concentration's not great. And sometimes when he's got too much time to think, it doesn't work. I think actually when he's up against it, and I think that's where guys like Nawrocki, Welsh, Scales, I think they actually perform quite well when they really have to dig in deep. And again, that's a mentality thing, and that's when guys like McGregor and stuff really are head and shoulders above when it comes to that sort of thing. Whether they've not been great this season, or that's maybe no fair, maybe just not reached the heights of previous seasons. I think that when you need somebody to dig in, when you need to win, when you just refuse to get beat, he's your man. And I think Joe Hart probably falls into that camp for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I remember in the pre-season, there was a mistake he made in Japan where it was a tippy-tappy football at the back. I've not seen it again this season. I mean, after every game, we had a heart and mouth moment that we would talk about after every match day last season and the season before. Not been doing it because I think he's basically been told we don't play like that anymore. That's a big change, subtle, but I think it's been a change that I've noticed all season with Joe Hart. There's been very, very few occasions where you're thinking, what are you doing, trying to take on a man or play a difficult pass? You know, far too often we've seen that, and either he directly or indirectly lost possession for us. It's not happened. So that for me is massive. When's getting Taylor back? We think it will be Kilmarnock. I'm pretty sure Rodgers will confirm that at the pre-match tomorrow. Spot on. McCann was having a pop. Neil McCann was having a pop at Celtic fans on telly last night. Wells praising Rangers fans. The bloke has no clue. Horrific punditry. Thank you, Martin. I absolutely agree with that wholeheartedly. AJSC Tech. The Rangers not going top was a massive blow to them last night because of what it symbolises. It symbolises floppy bibbles. Yes, and it was Valentine's. We know that they don't always celebrate Valentine's, and they weren't really celebrating last night as a result of the fact they had that chance and they didn't take it, even though they got an extra 17 minutes, somebody pointed out in the comments. So Celtic top of the league on the superior goal difference at the moment. We've both got a goal difference of 40, but we've scored more goals than them, basically. So we are top of the league. Hearts are on a good run of form, but they're miles off. They're on 48 points. Celtic and Rangers are on 61. And, of course, we play Kilmarnock, who are the fourth-place team, on the weekend on Saturday. They've only won one of the last five, but they have drawn three. So I think that, you know, they're going to come out. They're going to have their shape. They're going to be stubborn. McInnes is in charge. We know what he offers. But, again, Rodgers versus McInnes in the past has been good when he was the Aberdeen gaffer. Obviously, they've done pretty well against us this season. Another one from you. I feel Yang could be an absolute cracker. We were talking about the guys that came in the summer. He is getting better. He's raw, Brian. He's raw. I mean, if you're picking your wingers at the weekend, I'm still going to be picking Maeda and Palmer. They're still getting in my starting 11. From what I've seen, from what is available, they're still your starters for me.
Yeah, well, I think the dynamic works better when you've got Palmer as the sort of more unpredictable and made a bit more direct. I think that sort of suits us. Yang, I'm just not convinced, to be honest. I know he's been getting better, he's raw, but it goes back to that point actually about I made about framing and you made about the youth guys. How much better is he than Vata? I know we talk about Vata all the time, right? So if he's the next coming, but he's just an example of the sort of the conversation and the topic. How much better is Yang than Vata? I don't see it. I don't see why. So that's
or Lawal. How much better is Lawal than Kwon? I mean, I think that's another argument.
There you go, exactly. And that's where I get a wee bit confused. And I think, well, I know people say Yang's raw and he's learning and stuff. Well, if guys there, why are you spending money on these guys that are just learning? Let them learn something else, then sign them. But anyway, listen, if the Woes throws a hat trick tomorrow, I'll be cartwheel and sign his name. I'll try to cartwheel, sign his name. And I'll be delighted. But I find that sort of strange decision. And I just need to pick you up on something, Paul. You mentioned that we were top of the league, but are we no joint top? Is that not how it works these days? I keep hearing that we're joint top. I just don't know. So
who wins the league if it finishes today then?
It's a draw. It's a draw. It doesn't count,
just share it. Aye. Well, they count one of their previous clubs drawn or shared league titles anyway, don't they?
Aye, they love it. So I found it really funny today. I saw something about Rangers being joint top. I said, no, that's not how it works. But yeah, strange.
It's when they were a cup and they were cup champions. Remember, it's all in the detail.
They've been the nearly cup champions for a long time as well.
Yeah, devil is in the detail. 1,000 strong watching us this Thursday afternoon. JP Mason is normally on here giving us his views, but he's going to be absent for the next couple of weeks. He's a busy man, and of course we've got Brian Degnan from the Swindon CSC. Go and check them out on the socials. Robbie, thank you for supporting the channel. We needed Brian Hogan, CSC Tipperary. We needed to give the fans encouragement with a positive display this weekend. We owe Kelly a scalping. Yeah, I'll take that. No more late shows, please. It's not healthy. Really hope we see a ruthless streak. I think we're seeing it. We're certainly hearing it from Brendan. And if that filters into the team, then I'll be delighted. We've mentioned Ida and Kyogo in dispatches during the show. Brian, I don't think we're going to set up with the both of them in the starting 11. But if you're doing it on form, Kyogo gets a nod. I mean, I've been impressed with Ida, but Kyogo gets a nod based on form, based on the last game. So I can see us going 3 midfields, Kyogo up top. Who's your 3 midfielders, though? Because I don't know if Bernardo's gone off the boil a wee bit. Do you bring anyone else? I know Iwata was on the bench at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if Iwata's fit, I would have him and push McGregor forward a wee bit with O'Reilly. I think O'Reilly starts and McGregor starts regardless. If Iwata's not fit, then you're probably looking at home, really. And I still think there's a player in there. I think he just needs to, build out his physicality a bit. But I do think there's a player there that can maybe unlock something. So if Iwata's not fit, home. If Iwata's fit, then he was starting to push McGregor up a wee bit.
Yeah, and it answers one of the other big questions around Bernardo. I think he has shown around about that game against Rangers where we beat them 2-1 what he can do. But you need to do that on a consistent basis if we're going to be spending £6 million on you. And it looks as though Celtic now are so cautious that we'll only spend £6 million if you've been with us for a season on loan and it's a try before you buy. Doesn't look as though we're going to be...
Is that what the buyout is for, Bernardo? Is it
I think it's €6 million rather than £6 million. But yes, that is the reported fee with 1.5 as your loan fee. So a very expensive acquisition. Whether or not Brendan Rodgers brings them in, who knows? We'll need to wait and see if there's somebody better available, having looked through the data rather than just ask your buddies who's on your mobile phone. Then you go elsewhere. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Give us a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel on the YouTube. We're almost at 25,500 Acsom subscribers. Everything we do on there is free of charge. We're adding new, fully produced content on a weekly basis through A Wander Around Paradise, but also interviews. We've had one recently with Johan Mjalby. It's split into 2 videos. Go and check it out. Van Hooijdonk, Cadet, and Collins. Go and check it out. One coming up. Can't tell you who it is, but it's a biggie. It is a biggie, Brian, confirmed this morning. So get subscribing to the channel. We've got a few shows coming up with Paddy McCourt. Paddy is back. He's back. We're going to Glasgow, Grangemouth, Oban, Fort William, and Inverness. 5 gigs. All the tickets details are underneath this video. And Martin O'Neill tickets for that in Glasgow are absolutely flying. That's going to sell out. If you want to come along, you know what to do. Click the link. Brian, you were there the last time, drinking red wine and being Martin's buddy. Hopefully you can be there again, my friend. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Check out the Swindon CSC. And thank you to Brian Degnan for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.